What up, Winbush here, and today I want to show you guys what I think might be the most important item inside of Unreal Engine 5, whether you're doing cinematics or working inside of gameplay, and that would be the post-process volume. Now, the post-process volume could be used for a whole plethora of different things, but what I want to do is show you my 8 essential attributes that I think is going to really take your level or your cinematics to that next level. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So we're inside of Unreal Engine 5, and we're first going to get started by coming up here to where we have this box with this little green plus symbol. So I'm going to left click on this, and I'm going to come down here to visual effects, and I'm going to come over here where it says post-process volume. Now I'm going to left click on this, and you'll see that it actually brought it into our outliner over here. And what I'm going to do is come down here to transform, and I'm actually going to come right here on the right hand side. I'm just going to reset it, and now we can see that it's in a direct 0 inside of our location. Now you can see right off the bat, we have this yellow bounding box. And what this means is anything that we do inside of our attributes panel over here is only going to encompass what's inside this volume box here. Now, what we want to do is actually have everything that's inside the post-process volume encompass our entire environment here. And so in order to do that, I'm going to come over here to search. I'm going to type in UMB, and right here where it says infinite extent unbound, I'm going to left click on this. And what this did was it unleashed everything that we're going to do inside the post-process volume. So it's not only inside the box, but our entire environment. So I'm actually going to exit this out, and I'm going to show you guys my first essential attribute here, in which if I scroll over here to lens and come down here to bloom, you can see right here where it says method. I'm going to turn this on, and then I'm going to turn on intensity as well. Now you can see the bloom effect happening as soon as I hit intensity. So I'm going to click this on and off, especially if you look in the light area right here. And actually, let me click on the item in here, and I'm going to hit G on my keyboard. And what that's going to do is going to turn all the icons off inside of our scene, so it's nice and clean. So coming back over here to intensity, I'm turning it on and off, and you can see that we're getting some nice bloom effects, especially where we have the emissive materials. Now, if I come over here to method where it says standard, if I left click on this, you can see down here, it says convolution. And what this is going to do, it's going to give us a better bloom on our lighting effects. And so you can see right here, it already says it's intended for cinematics. So it's going to be a little bit expensive. So if you're doing gameplay, I would probably stick with standard. But if we're going to render this out for cinematics or rendering or anything of the sort, you could come down here to convolution to get a more accurate bloom. Now, if I turn up intensity, you can actually see the effect of what it's having here. You can see that we're getting a cool lens flare here happening. And if we actually want to control this, this is going to take me to number 2 in my essential attributes, in which if I come back over here and I scroll down, you can see that we have lens flare. And this is how we can actually control some of this as well. So I'm going to turn on intensity, tint, and bokeh. So if I come down here and let's change the bokeh size. So if I change this, you can see how we could change the bokeh on the lens flare, which I always thought was pretty neat. And then we can always turn it up if we really wanted to, or we could turn it down just so it's settled. Now, if you wanted to change the color of it, you just click on tint, maybe come over here. Let's change it to maybe like a bluish color, somewhere around there. And if I turn it up, now you can see we have a blue tint to our lens flare. And speaking of lighting, I want to give a big shout out to today's sponsor of this video, which is Lumary. They actually sent me out these smart bars. They're RGB and they're AI powered, so you can hook them up to your smartphone or your smart home. And what these basically are, like you put these outside and they're going to give you RGB lighting, or they're going to give you white lighting, and they're durable and they're waterproof. But I like them so much that I actually put them here inside of my home office, because I could just ramp it up depending on whatever type of mood I'm in. I can actually control the ambient inside of my office here. So I know these are made for outdoor lighting, but I do like the way that they look and how I'm able to control them with my phone. So I'm leaving them here in my office, screwed into my back wall, so I can control the lighting here. But these are actually the lights you see down below that are coming up behind me. Those are actually the smart lights that I'm using right here. So again, big shout out to Luminary for sponsoring this video. Now, the bloom effect is always going to help you with your lighting and your lens flares, but we do want to control the lighting inside of our scene, which is going to bring me to number 3 of my essential attributes inside of post-process volume. So I'm going to close up my lens flare here, and then I'm going to scroll up here to where it says exposure. I'm still under lens, so I want to come over here to exposure. And if I come down here, you can see we have min EV100 and max EV100. Now, I'm going to turn these on, and then I'm going to put both of these at 1. And you can see right away the lighting got really dark. Now, let's say if you're inside a house and you go outside of the house, your eyes are going to take a second to get adjusted to the sun or whatever the lighting situation is outside. And so with the Min EV100 and the Max EV100, it is basically replicating that inside the game engine. So we're inside of an apartment right here. If we would have walked outside of it, you would have seen the adjustment of the iris of the camera adjust to the lighting accordingly outside. Mostly that's for gameplay, but if we're doing cinematics, we want to turn that off. And that's why I made the min EV100 and the max EV100 just one. Now, if we didn't want it to be this dark, you can always come up here to where it says exposure compensation. And if I left click on this and then I turn this up and down, you can see we can start controlling the exposure inside of our lens again. So let's say you want to have it around 1.1 and you like the lighting there, and that's all you have to do. So I just click on these three attributes to control the lighting inside of our exposure. So you can already see the power of the post-process volume, but for my next essential attribute, we're actually going to get into the vignette. So still inside the lens here on the right-hand side right here, I'm going to come down and look for image effects. And right here, you can see vignette. So if I click on vignette intensity, you can see if I start scrolling this up, how we start getting the vignette around the edges. Now in motion graphics especially, we use this to give a focal point to the middle. So if I scroll this all the way up, let me actually make this like 10, you can see what's happening. So your eye is being drawn directly to the center. And this is a good way to visually make sure that the viewer is looking at what you want them to see. And so usually we don't have it go that strong, maybe somewhere around like 0.5. It's always nice just to have a small vignette in there if you didn't want it to be too strong, but this is a way we could do this inside of Unreal Engine. Now I know a lot of people like to do this in post, maybe in like After Effects or maybe even Blackmagic Resolve, but we could do all that stuff inside of Unreal Engine so you don't have to bother with any other programs once you render out. I'm going to close this up, and the next one I want to show you guys is the Chromatic Aberration. Now if I left click on this and I click on intensity, I'm just going to show you guys what this does. So I'm going to scroll this all the way up, and you can already see the RGB values are starting to get distorted there. But what this is doing is changing out the color values, and it's not being manifested on the same plane. And so sometimes we like to add a little bit of chromatic aberration inside of our scene just so it's not so sharp. So you usually don't want to go too heavy unless you're doing something real stylized, but I like to use maybe like 0.1 just to add a little bit of variety in there and to make sure that our scene isn't so sharp, because especially when you're rendering and you want to do something that looks photoreal, you don't want it to be as sharp as possible because that doesn't look realistic. You want to add maybe a little bit of chromatic aberration, maybe a little bit of grain and a little bit of blur, not too much, but just a little bit goes a long way. I'm going to close this up. I'm going to come down here to where it says color grading, because I don't think a lot of people actually know that we have color grading tools inside of here, something that you would see in maybe like DaVinci. So if I click down on here under global, you can see right off the bat, I could change out my saturation, and you can see we have our color scopes here as well. So if I bring up my saturation, you can already see it's going really high. If I take it all the way down, black and white, and these are the same type of color scopes that you would see inside of like a professional color app. So if I come down to contrast, we also have leeway to change out the contrast as well. So I could change this like that, and you can already see how powerful this is. So you don't have to go to maybe like Blackmagic Resolve. You could do all this stuff right here inside of Unreal Engine, which I always thought was really powerful and underutilized. So maybe if I come down here under shadows, we have even more control over just our shadows. So you can see, you can control that like that. I'm just going to leave this one at 1. Come down here to my contrast. You can change out the shadow contrast there. So if I take it all the way to 0, you can see it's getting really light. But if I bring up my contrast, you can see the shadows are starting to get really dark. So you don't really want to take it too high, but you can already see the color correction mechanisms inside of Unreal are parallel to other ones you would see in other programs, maybe like After Effects or Premiere. And staying inside of color grading tools, if I come down here under miscellaneous, you can see that we actually have LUTs down here as well, which I always like to use. So if I come down here and click on LUTs, come down here, click on this one, you can see that we can actually add some LUTs in here as well. So I'm going to come down here to my content drawer, and I'm just going to dock it because I have some LUTs that I actually got off the marketplace here. But if you have your own, you can always use those ones as well. So just say like, I'm going to click and drag this into my scene. You can already start to see the power of having LUT control inside of Unreal Engine. So we're doing all of our color grading right here inside of Unreal. We're not using any type of third party. I got these LUTs right off the marketplace, but if you have your own, you can actually use those as well. But let's say I like this one right here, and I don't want it to be as heavy as it is. I could just come over here, change the intensity somewhere around there, maybe like 0.5. So we're getting half, and this is looking really nice. Now, as anybody knows, color grading could go really deep, and depending on how good you are at it, you might want to go even further. So I would suggest going in there and just checking some of them out. But on top of being able to color grade, we do have a path tracer inside of Unreal if you want to get those photorealistic images. And to control those settings, we actually do those inside of post-process volume as well. So I'm going to get started by actually coming over here to where it says lit. I'm going to come down here to path tracing. And what you can see the bar down here. So if you're familiar with like Redshift or Arnold or Octane, this is essentially the same thing as those render engines. And so, you know, if you sit there on this still, it's going to start getting better over time. But while this frame is rendering out, I'm actually going to come down here and I'm going to look for path tracing, in which I have it right here under film grain. So if I click on this, you see that we have a couple of attributes for our path tracing. Now I have a full tutorial about 15 minutes going through all these attributes and how to get the best settings for a path tracing render, but I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to link it up above. So make sure you go and check that out, but you can click all these on and then you can see it's really easy. We only have a couple of settings here. This is going to give us some really nice renders out of Unreal Engine. Now, if I come back over here and I click on lit, you can see this is without path tracing and then this is with path tracing. So you can see the total difference, especially in the shadows and the lighting. See right there, come back over here, path tracing. So this is something that I would experiment, but be leery depending on your system specs. This is a GPU renderer. So if you have a good GPU, it's going to render in a decent time. But if your system might be on the lower end, just give it a little bit of time because this is going to take a little bit longer to render out than your Luma render. But to finish this out, I'm going to go to my last essential setting, which is the motion blur. Now, if I come down here, I'm actually just going to search for it. So I'm just going to type in motion blur, just like that. And it's going to be under rendering features, but these are the settings for motion blur. So if you click all these on, but starting at the top right here under amount, this is going to be the strength of your motion blur. And then this is going to be the max distortion of your motion blur. And then again, frame rate, you want to put at the target of whatever your scene is. And then I'm not sure what per object size is. You might want to go to the documents for that. But essentially what I like to do is I like to control my motion blur in here before I render out, maybe do a couple of frames, see how it's looking and go from there. But a lot of people ask me how to control the motion blur, and it's all inside the post-process volume. So hopefully this video here helped you guys out, and if it did, make sure you leave me a shout out down in the comment section. Leave me a big what up if you made it here to the end. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and until next time, stay fresh, keep creating, and I'll catch you in the next video. I'll see you soon. Take care.